Welcome to our drive-in theater. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you, one that will provide several hours of pleasurable relaxation and diversion for you and your family. Did you fail to dress up for tonight's show? No tie, an old shirt and slacks, a house dress? Well, don't give it a thought. We're glad you came as you are.
It's Driveway Drive-In with your hosts, Adam and Paul. Welcome to the Monster Home.
Welcome back to Driveway Drive-In. It's been a long year.
Hasn't it?
Yep. I'm
Probably longer than that.
Yeah. I think I'm Paul. I think that's Adam.
Double check. No, I'm definitely your co-host, Adam. And yeah, I think it's been almost a year. Driveway Drive-In has been on the air, as they say.
Anything happened to you in the past year?
Let me think. Well, the plague rained down upon us all.
Yeah, there was the plague.
Do you want to talk about that for an hour? No, we don't have to get into that. No, I
In case you didn't know, there was a global pandemic.
That wasn't as much fun as some of the zombie movies that we like to watch.
Yeah, basically, it was a whole lot of me eating chips and getting fat
and being in pajamas. You didn't get fat.
Yeah,
you actually did the opposite of that. You lost a shit ton of weight. Well, you put it to good use. I guess I did too. I became a dad.
Yeah, you did.
I became a dad. So,
beautiful baby boy.
Maxwell Choss is crawling around the house as we speak, I'm sure. Well, no, it's
I know. I can't wait to play this episode for his first date.
So that's kind of like the big news that happened to me. So,
yeah,
I guess I have between a pandemic and having a kid, I'd say we have a pretty good excuse for not recording for a while.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, let's be honest, though. It is good to be back, though. Back in our natural element.
It's surreal. I can't believe we're actually in the same room, in the same recording studio, getting ready to talk about some movies. This is cool.
Yeah, well, what better time than any to do a podcast than do an annual Halloween special. For this episode, because we're kind of far apart now, he lives in one planet. I live in the other
That
planet.
is the other thing that happened. I moved far, far away.
You did. But we're going to be doing some remote sessions soon, so we'll be back full-fledged to talk about movies, because let's face it, we have nothing else better to do.
No, that's it. I mean, I change diapers and think about horror movies, so I need an outlet.
Anyways, it comes time to be your elitist holiday.
It is my elitist time of year.
Yes. I don't know. A lot of people like to watch horror movies only in October. It's kind of a year-round thing for both of us.
It is, and that's why doing a Halloween special for hardcore horror fans is always so difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult for me, anyway. Like, before we got together this evening, we were throwing around ideas for, how we could, what we could possibly do for this Halloween special. And when you watch horror movies weekly, I mean,
yes.
I could almost, I watch at least one horror movie a week. I'm sure that you far surpass that.
I like to watch them during my work day. I watch 2 movies a day usually, and sometimes.
Well, just like, what do you do for Halloween then?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's like, how do you make that special? It's hard.
It is. I mean, I have things that I go to. Like, one day I'll watch nothing but Vincent Price movies.
Yeah. I think it always goes back to watching the older movies.
Yeah, it always does.
The stuff that you watched when you were a kid.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, like, I want to capture that feeling. Yeah, I like to watch, my traditionals, but this year I was trying to do something different. I was asking friends for lists of movies that they like to watch, to see things that I haven't seen. And that's kind of how we came up with the idea of what to do with this particular Halloween special.
Right.
Adam gave me 2 movies, and I gave him 2 movies, and we're going to discuss those.
Yeah.
First one up.
So
Well, should we just tell everybody the title? Because I think we should.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So the 2 movies that I gave Adam, also known as The Good List, were Curse of the Demon, or Night of the Demon as it's called. Terror Train were the 2 that I gave him. Adam, because he hates me, decided to give me Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with Frederick March, that particular version.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me When a Stranger Calls.
Yeah. And these are movies that I loved in my childhood. I mean, we'll kind of delve into it here in a minute.
Yeah. So I think we should probably just go chronologically with these.
That's fine. That's
Okay.
fine. But I do want to preface the movies that I chose with this. Hadn't seen them in a while. I didn't remember much about them. Both of them surprised me for a variety of reasons. One, mostly for the positive, for the better, and the other one, far for the worse.
Yeah.
I just, when I was looking, it's kind of like when you're looking to do a Halloween special, you want to pick movies that feel like Halloween, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want to just do the same movies over and over again. Like, we could sit here and do Halloween, right? 1979. Yeah. What more could be said about that movie?
I don't know.
Or Night of the Living Dead.
I wrote a 19-page thesis paper on Halloween, the original. So
I just think
I could just read that aloud.
At this point,
or get the TikTok voice to do it.
Probably. But it just, there's not a whole lot more to be said. So I was kind of digging deep with these films, trying to find something we haven't talked about a lot, watched about recently, kind of like expand our horizons a little bit. So that's my excuse for the horrible movies that I chose.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut to a clip here of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
And Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is not a horrible film by any stretch.
Can we just get to the movie?
Sure.
All right. I'm going to just take a little quick break here, pull up the clip, and enjoy.
Must be going now.
Going? Where?
Home.
You call that home? That pigsty of yours in Babin's Court?
Sire, did you come off that?
Oh, I like you when your temper's up, my dear.
How do you know where I live?
I saw you on the street and followed you. Ah, my pretty, you deserve better than that. You ought to live in a place worthy of you.
Buckingham Palace, I suppose.
That's the spirit I like. Sit down, my dear. Sit down just for a moment, eh? You should have a place that would set off that fine body of yours. Yellow hair and pale face, Clothes to match, too, my dear. Silk, eh? And a bracelet or two, Champagne to drink, eh? How'd you like that?
And how am I to get it?
How do you think you're going to get it, my bright little bird, I'm no gentleman, but I've money. Perhaps my looks don't please you.
Well, you ain't no beauty.
Quite right. I am no beauty. Perhaps you prefer a gentleman, eh? One of those fine-mannered, virtuous, and honorable gentlemen. One of those canting hypocrites who like your legs but talk about your garter.
What are you talking about?
Oh, my poor little innocent. It doesn't know what I'm talking about, eh? Well, it's afraid of me, isn't it?
No. I ain't afraid of you.
Aren't you? Good.
Hey, you. Trying to steal my girl, are you, you dirty blighter? Come back, you. I'll fix you.
Get out.
Wench.
Get out.
I'll knock your blooming
Get out of here, you.
You couldn't have done it.
What Milo. Why not? This face was just made for it. Oh, no.
Stop that. Let me go.
Oh, no. Oh, no. You're not
Let me go. I'm going.
Oh, no.
I'm going home.
Forgive me, my dear. You see, I hurt you because I love you.
So, this was a clip from 1931's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, based on the original book by Robert Louis Stevenson. This one stars Frederick March. And this was recommended to me by Adam.
Several variations of the story throughout the years.
There is, and I'm more familiar with the Lana Turner and Spencer Tracy one.
Right.
So I'm glad you recommended it to me. I really enjoyed it. It's a super weird movie.
Yep.
One thing to consider in this, it was made 3 years before the motion picture production code. So it's a lot racier than you would think.
Yeah, like we had, when we suggested these movies to each other, basically our criteria was we were going to choose one movie that was released prior to the Hays Code, right?
Yeah, like a Hays Code era movie.
And then one, like a retro movie, like a movie between the 60s and the 90s. And I totally messed up because I thought that started. I thought the code started in 1930, but clearly with this movie, that's not the case.
Yeah,
because it is a very racy movie, and some of the themes are, controversial to say the least.
yeah, and I was glad that I watched it. It's shot super weird. There's a lot of long stretches where it's like a point of view camera where you're in Hyde's personality. And
I actually have that written down. Well, it opens with a POV shot.
Very long POV
and,
shot. It's almost like 10 minutes long.
It's like you're living vicariously through the eyes of Dr. Henry Jekyll.
Yeah.
And, all his manservants and everyone that worships him.
Yeah, and he's like a superstar athletic.
Yeah.
It was very different from the book. And the book I used to get from the library all the time when I was little. I loved the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But this one looked like they wanted to explore some different themes in it than what were present in Robert Louis Stevenson's versions.
Right.
Mr. Hyde is a lot different than, like a serial killer or like a mass murderer.
Yeah, he certainly is. He's not really portrayed as anyone. Like, I always saw him as the character of Mr. Hyde as an unofficial universal monster.
Yeah.
The character of Mr. Hyde would fit right in next to like the Invisible Man and, Dracula and, the Wolfman, Frankenstein,
Yeah.
And the film itself, he's not, in this version of the film anyway, he's not really
homicidal.
No, he's not prowling. Like, I remember this film, and I haven't seen this movie since I was a kid. And I think why this was such a surprise to me, I don't know what I was doing. I don't know if I was thinking of like Abbott and Costello meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde or something like that. I was remembering this monster as being much more maniacal, much more in the vein of like the Wolfman, really.
Yeah.
Like prowling the streets of London and like being much more murderous. And Mr. Hyde here, it really isn't portrayed as a monster per se.
Yeah, I mean, he's deformed.
Let's just say this. He's not going out when Dr. Jekyll swallows the potion, right, and transformed into Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde's primary goal isn't just walking the streets of London to find a victim. Like, that's not what he's doing. He's just trying to live his life as, like, a person that doesn't have any consequences.
Yeah.
Not necessarily someone looking to kill somebody.
No,
like,
this is the Scarface.
If you get in his way, he will kill you.
Yeah.
But he's not looking to kill anyone necessarily.
Yeah, he's definitely like I say, he's like the Scarface of monsters.
Yeah.
You know, and there's like a dinner scene where he's like a total nightmare, like in Scarface. That's what I thought of when I was watching it, written down. And the other things were, you know, there's a lot of like sexual undertones in this, and I don't know if this was
you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was like there's like
the whole justification for Jekyll and his experiments. He's basically just getting cockblocked by his fiance's,
like his would-be father,
his father-in-law. Okay, I guess they're called father-in-laws. Anyway, so she's, you know, this poor guy's been with this lady for what seems like for forever. All they want to do is get married so they can like
start a family,
do their stuff, and the dad's just like, no, you got to wait like 5 years. He said,
yeah,
and they're just like 5 years, like how can we, you know? And it's just like it's torture.
Yeah,
it's sexual. It's sexual. You know, repression. Thank you.
Yeah.
To like an extreme extent.
Yeah, and you know,
and the entire reason
about, like,
he's trying to split, and I should, you know, Dr. Jekyll is trying to find a way to split the evil side from what he perceives to be humanity's real nature, I guess, which is like just, you know, angelic, good people. I mean, what he's really trying to do is alleviate his blue balls.
Yeah. No, there's definitely
without getting, you know.
Well, they're gray balls because it's black and white. There's no color.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that,
no, I do.
I mean, that is what. If the father would have just let them get married and let nature take its course.
Yeah.
Mr. Hyde, you know, this whole like serum and trying to get this part out of you that, you know, makes you want to like, I don't know, that probably never would have happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that.
British society was just like so bizarre.
Yeah, well, it was. And there's a lot of like strange, you know, scenes in this that they made a lot of different choices. Like Hyde basically just wants to torture this girl that wants to hook up with Dr. Jekyll.
Right.
This down and out girl.
Right.
And he wants to just like punish her and sleep with her and just be just like, it's like 50 Shades of Hyde.
Yeah.
You know?
Just real quick, you know, like I'm talking about how like British society back then was like so, like it was, they were basically living on a different planet.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a part in the very beginning during that POV shot where they're like, Dr. Jekyll, like, would you like your coat this evening or your cape? And he's like, give me my cape.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, there was a time that was like a normal thing to say. Like,
dude, I see that all the time.
My cape.
You know, like my poor kid. She's just like, you know, has to get my cape and my cane.
Give me my cape. Like, and they were just like, yeah, okay. But anyway, and like the way the movie portrays just London in general, you were either rich or you were a servant of someone that was rich.
Yeah, that's basically, you know, it's kind of like America.
Yeah, you were either just living the good life,
you know,
and like oblivious to whatever, or you were a servant of somebody.
Yeah, and that's kind of a theme to it. There's like political undertones to it. I think this one, they kind of took the novelty of Freud's psychoanalysis to a new level.
Yeah.
With this, and the start of sexual repression in general was what he did with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in this particular version. Overall, I recommend it if you want to see something kind of racy. There's tasteful side boob, which I don't remember from being a kid. And there's definitely some leg swinging. And that's another POV shot that's a little, you know, strange and weird.
Well, she's bizarre.
Yeah, I like the whole movie.
Champagne Ivy. her
Champion
name.
Ivy, yeah.
But yeah, like, the thing that surprised me, like, I remember this movie so differently, and unlike The Invisible Man or Dr. Frankenstein or some other mad scientist, his goals are so small. And I don't mean the scientist himself, because obviously separating evil from good or whatever, that new wave stupid theory.
Yeah.
Because it's really kind of stupid when you think about it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it doesn't hold up under scrutiny at all. But, like, Dr. Frankenstein was trying to, like, cheat death.
Yeah.
The Invisible Man, like, I don't know what his main goal was, but turning people invisible. And then later when he became invisible, he wanted to world domination was his goal. Mr. Hyde, he turns into Mr. Hyde. What does he choose to do? Just torment some poor woman. Like, that's all he does.
Someone whose life sucks.
Yeah. It's Champagne Ivy, who Dr. Jekyll had met earlier in the film and was being attacked. And, it's like one of those scenes where, like, they're in the heart of Depression era London, the foggy streets of London during like the very poor times. The slums, right. And Dr. Jekyll like chases her assailant away and carries her upstairs, and he's just trying to be like a doctor, I guess.
Yeah. And she's trying to get him the cop a feel.
Oh yeah, she's like coming on to him like so strong that for a 1930s movie, I'll be honest with you, it kind of started to make me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm like, she's like, I think I got a bruise, like, think under my boob.
Think of your bureaucratic oath. Is that what it's called for a doctor?
Hippocratic.
Oh, yeah, whatever. That thing.
Yes. Bureaucratic oath is totally different.
All right. Well, you know what I mean.
Yes, I do.
I think about, you're the doctor, she's the patient, blah, blah, blah. But she was not having it.
Yeah.
She was coming on to him so strong. And that's why, and immediately after this scene, he's like talking to his fiance's dad, who's like, yeah, you can't sleep with my daughter. You got to wait another 5 years. And it's like, no wonder this happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So if, like, he's a good dude and, they're of age, maybe let them get married in less than 5 years.
Right.
But who knows?
I will say one thing about this movie, too. Like, I'm glad that I stuck with it because, like, the scenes in the beginning were just so... They have that 30s vaudeville dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for me to get through.
Oh, the scene where they're in the garden.
The garden.
They're like
I have it written down.
Their lives.
I have it written down on my notepad. It says, the scene in the garden made me want to puke.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're just sitting, like, they're so close to each other that they probably, like, smell each other's breath.
Yeah.
It's like, I hope you didn't eat anything recently, because
we're sitting that close right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't smell anything. Yeah. Fortunately. But they're like professing their love to each other, and it just goes on and on.
And I'm
and
like, dude,
on and on and on.
Just put it in.
But it's no, don't do that. Her dad was in the other room. There's actually a lot of people in the other room. That was not the time to do that. Anyway,
was definitely the time to do
well,
it.
Maybe. That was like the only time they...
You could have saved so much death and destruction.
I guess fortunately, that was the only time they were really like alone with each other.
Yeah. Like, you're going to just have to, like, kind of go for it.
Yeah.
That
dad was like, yeah, I waited for my wife for like 26 years. And you're just like, dude.
I was like, yeah, I'm like, dude, yeah. I don't know. It just seemed weird. But I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that he hated Jekyll. And I
don't know if he hated Jekyll or if that was just like what society deemed was what was appropriate.
No, he definitely had a problem with him. He kept calling him like eccentric and weird. And
actually, I don't blame him because the beginning of the movie, he does that speech. Like a lot of these movies, they like the science guy does the speech in front of all his peers.
Yeah,
and they're all like seated in like an auditorium.
Yeah,
and he gives that speech about how the world's going to change and you better like get with the times or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, invariably they always leave and they think he's a crackpot.
Well, the young people like it, and then the old people are like, ugh.
Yeah, that is kind of how it went down.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, that's kind of how it goes.
So I guess the dad was right, though. I mean, you could actually do that, but like, my whole thing is like, why would you even want to do that? You can't separate, like, if you separate the evil out of you, what would you be like? You'd be like,
You couldn't even play Mario Kart.
right?
You
Like,
know,
you have
you're
to
gonna
have
have
like
to-
a survival instinct.
Yeah, and that's like the whole thing, and that's what attracted me to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde to begin with. Was I always loved stories about like the dichotomy of man with like the animal and the divine. I always find that interesting. That's why I like Wolfman. That's why I like werewolves. Just makes it really, an interesting story for me. It's like a theme that I love to explore. And in this one, it's like, do I really need to make an alternate personality to torture a down and out?
Right, because
Lowly
that's
woman.
all he did was abuse this poor woman.
Yeah,
That's all he did.
yeah,
And it's kind of like, that Invisible Man remake with Elizabeth Moss came out. Was that a year ago, 2 years ago? And I really enjoyed that, by the way.
yeah. It's not,
But they took it down a very different road.
yeah,
with
like
the story.
Like, dude found a way to make himself invisible, and all he wants to do is
Just to torment his ex or try to get his ex back or whatever.
Yeah,
And I said to you, I'm just like, this was such a better vehicle for that treatment.
yeah. No, definitely.
A
'Cause, like-
Blumhouse, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You can still have Elizabeth Moss as Champagne Ivy or Fireball Franny or something.
Fireball Franny. I think we met her at the
Snorted at my own
Automuseum.
joke. Yeah, she can be Fireball Franny, and you can just do like a story about a toxic male,
Yeah,
because that's essentially what this movie's about.
yeah, that's what it is.
I mean, you can't get away from it.
No, there isn't.
And that's what they tried. That's what they were doing with Invisible Man. But I just think it's so much more. The story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, at least in this version, actually in all versions,
Yeah,
that's what he is, and he's a tormentor of women. And if they wanted to go that route, I think. I mean, they still could have had a Mr. Hyde gaslighting his girlfriend, because that's what that movie was about. So I don't know. That's all I got to say about that.
yeah. Okay. Well,
I do want to ask you one question before we get off this topic.
All right.
Where do you rate Dr. Jekyll on the all-time mad scientist list? Now, I'm kind of like throwing that out at you, but I'm talking like sort of.
Are you talking about this Dr. Jekyll, or are you talking about?
Well, he's all sort of the same, isn't he?
They are, and they're not.
Like they mean well.
Yeah.
They all mean well.
I mean, they're.
Like who's number one all time? Dr. Frankenstein?
Yeah, it's gonna be Dr. Frankenstein, or at least Herbert West.
You can put Herbert West as number two. That's fine.
Yeah.
And I mean, would you put
I would put
Dr. Griffin,
Dr.
Invisible
Griffin,
Man?
Yeah, I would
three?
definitely put him as number 3, because like he is what everything.
That's fine. I'd argue that Dr. Jekyll's 4.
I would say he's definitely top 5, and if
All right.
not top 5, top 10.
I mean, you got like it's an iconic story,
It is.
and the story hasn't been told in a while, but it's been told a multitude of times.
Yeah.
So, but all right. Anyway, we can move on.
Okay. So next one up chronologically was the one that I gave you. It was Curse of the Demon, also known as Night of the Demon.
Say this, and there are 2 variations of this: Curse of the Demon and Night of the Demon.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very like.
Tell the audience what
minuscule.
the differences are.
Okay, so Curse of the Demon is the US released version, and Night of the Demon is the UK released version. And the only real major difference is the opening monologue at Stonehenge in the British version is about 20 seconds longer.
Okay.
So,
Because I'll be honest with you, I was searching for this movie, And every time I typed in Night of the Demon, I got this 1980 movie about Bigfoot. And I started watching it, and like topless co-eds were getting killed within like the first 10 minutes. And I was like,
poor thing.
This probably isn't the movie that Paul suggested.
No, like,
So,
that sounds like the movie
but then I was like, oh, maybe it is. Maybe it is the movie that he suggested.
Okay.
So anyway, Night of the Demon produced no, my Xfinity artificial intelligence just kept giving me this Bigfoot movie. So then I typed in Curse of the Demon and I finally got it.
Yeah.
So hopefully the version that I watched isn't severely different from the movie that you want to talk about.
Yeah, no, it isn't. So.
And the beginning shot is Stonehenge.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
It really is. So, I recommended this movie to you because it's one of my all-time favorites. It's one of the only, like, early horror films that takes place on Halloween.
It takes place over several weeks.
It takes place over, 2 weeks. But I would say the climax of the film takes place
on Halloween. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
When he finally confronts Carswell. And it is the story of a skeptic scientist who is doing a speech on witchcraft and the power of suggestion. And a leader of a cult takes offense to it. So he puts a curse on him that will kill him in 2 weeks.
Mm.
And he had just killed, it starts with the murder of his colleague who had the curse on him.
Right. I can attest to everything Paul just said. That is what the movie's about.
Yeah. And so it's very similar to the kind of recent, I think it's like 10 years old now, Drag Me to Hell.
Yeah, and it's a precursor to Pumpkinhead as well. And it's one of those, it's a demon movie, it's a great demon movie, where basically people use demons for acts of revenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up this clip here. It's probably my favorite scene. It's the Halloween party in which our protagonist meets Carswell, who's one of the great villains, and he's dressed like a clown. And he's one of the most terrifying clowns I've ever seen in film. But he's got a very warm personality. It's a very unique scene. It's very different. But I'm going to go ahead and pull up that scene real quick, and I will be right back.
Ah, Holden, delighted to see you.
I hope we're not intruding.
Not at all. Just my annual Halloween party for the village children. I'll come right up.
He's just a nice old guy.
Perhaps he's Santa Claus in disguise.
I didn't recognize you.
I used to earn my living like this years ago. You see before you Dr. Bobo, the Magnificent.
Oh, excuse me, this is Miss Joanna Harrington.
Miss, not by any chance.
Yes, he was my uncle.
Oh. I was very sorry to hear of his accident. He was a man of great principle. Mother? Mother?
Oh.
I'd like you to meet my mother. You must try homemade ice cream. She's very proud of it. Mother, may I introduce Dr. Holden?
How do you do?
And Miss Joanna Harrington. Miss Harrington is a niece of Henry Harrington's. Dr. Holden's going to borrow a book from my library. I've asked them to stay.
Oh, how nice. I hope you don't mind children's parties, my dear. Julian's so fond of children. He really ought to be married, but he's so fussy. Oh, you aren't married, are you?
No.
Oh, mother.
You like ice cream, my dear?
Yes, I love it.
Well, come with me and I'll give you a treat.
Would you like to try some?
Not right now, thank you. Say, this is quite a place you have here.
Yes. Let me show you around. Snakes and ladders. An English game, you wouldn't know it. You see, if you land at the foot of the ladder, you climb up to the top. But if you land on the head of a snake, you slide all the way down again. Funny thing, I always preferred sliding down the snakes to climbing up the ladders. You're a doctor of psychology. You ought to know the answer to that.
Maybe you're a good loser.
I'm not, you know. Not a bit. Just how much do you know about this book that you're after?
Not very much, only that Professor Harrington referred to it in his notes.
A remarkable work. The few men that really understood it learned many strange and terrifying secrets.
Only a few? Is it that hard to understand?
I spent my life trying to decipher it. The ancient sorcerers who wrote it knew their information was far too valuable to entrust to any known language.
I didn't realize what I was asking for.
You don't believe in witchcraft?
Do you?
Do I believe in witchcraft? What kind of witchcraft? The legendary witch that rides on the imaginary broom, the hex that tortures the thoughts of the victim, the pin stuck in the image that wastes away the mind and the body.
Also imaginary.
But where does imagination end and reality begin? What is this twilight, this half-world of the mind that you profess to know so much about? How can we differentiate between the powers of darkness and the powers of the mind? Oh, how terrifying. Ah, what do I see here? Yes, some chocolate, I do believe. And there as well. Here we are.
Coarse, chocolate.
Wonderful, aren't they? If only we grown-ups could preserve their capacity for simple joys and simple belief.
I see you practice white magic as well as black.
Oh, yes. I don't think it'll be too amusing for the youngsters if I conjured up a demon from hell for them. Or for myself, for that matter. As we're not protected by the magic circle, we'd both of us be torn to shreds.
And you'd spoil the party.
You're so right. But how to prove my point? Ah, yes. Yes. There. It's done.
What is?
A magician doesn't like to expose his magic, black or white.
And we're back. So, yeah, Carswell is like a creepy dude. I really enjoy such a good villain.
It's probably one of the best scenes of the movie that doesn't have the actual demon in it.
Yeah. And the actual demon is just a great monster to begin with.
It's iconic. And I'm not all that familiar with it. And it's every time the demon is on screen, it's breathtaking. But sorry.
Yeah, well, that's the reason I gave it to you, because I know you haven't seen it. And yeah, so Night of the Demons is from the director of Cat People, which was the movie that
makes sense.
The movie that invented the jump scare.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. That actually was on my possible list for you.
That would have been cool.
But so this was your first.
Yeah. So anyway, about that scene. So he's dressed up. Nowadays, like the evil clown is like so been there, done that, you know. But this movie came out in what was the year?
59.
So he's dressed as like this hobo clown.
Yeah.
And it's at first it comes off as harmless, but like when he's talking to the professor, or I'm sorry, the investigator who's investigating his cult.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's subtly sort of threatening him. And then it turns into, okay, I'm going to give you an example of my power. And that's when the windstorm like begins.
Yeah.
And he's just sitting there in his clown makeup while there's this wild windstorm all around him. And everyone's like scurrying and, you know, trying to get to shelter. And it's just like, it's one of the more effective scenes in the movie because it's creepy.
It is.
I mean, a clown, it's creepy in general. A clown that can control the weather is on a different level.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I mean, Carswell is one of like the great cinematic villains. I mean, he's got kind of a charming personality.
Yeah.
And
he's likable.
He's likable, but he's so sinister too.
He's so vindictive.
Yeah.
Like, if you even hint that you don't believe in, like, what he believes in, or he just thinks for a second that you're investigating his activities. And did they ever, in this movie, like, go into detail about why there's so much investigation on his...
Well, yeah, because they were doing a thing about the power of suggestion through hypnosis and
so they're just
witchcraft.
saying he was a fake.
Yeah, with witchcraft and, exploring witchcraft as part of the suggestibility of people.
Yeah, okay. Well, all right, I can see that. He just flaunted his demon card
like
way too often. And, it's just like, if you rub this guy the wrong way, he's just like, I'm going to hide this in your stack of papers, and this giant monster made of whatever is going to come and freaking kill you.
Yeah.
But, the demon itself is, I mean, what an image. It comes out of the blue, out of the blackness of the night, and there's smoke from, like, hell basically just, like, emanating off of it. And you don't realize how big this demon is until, it comes up upon a person. Like, it's just like a King Kong sized demon.
Yeah.
It's King Kong from hell.
Yeah. And I mean, you have that aspect to it.
I'm surprised that this movie isn't more well known.
Yeah, it suffered from, like, some release issues. Like, it's not officially available in the United States on Blu-ray. I have it on Blu-ray.
I think most people don't know about it because it was Night of the Demon here, and everyone looks for it, and it's that horrible Bigfoot movie.
Yeah.
Or
Night of the Demons, which is that awesome Linnaeus.
Well, that's right. So right there's like a barrier.
Yeah.
you gotta really, like, stick to your guns to find it.
Yeah, you do. And I mean, it's a very British horror film, even though the director's French.
Yeah, I'm happy you said that because it's a super British film.
Yes.
I liked it. I enjoyed it. Do not get me wrong. But it's a long film. I think it comes just over 2 hours.
No.
It doesn't? Maybe it just felt that way.
Yeah.
No, the good parts are very good, but there are long stretches where it's British.
And people are talking and...
Well, the British, and you get this even from, like, the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde movie. The way movies in this, like, portrayed the British, like, they just wanted to dress in suits, smoke, and talk a lot.
Kind of like us.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'm wearing a tuxedo right now.
Well, yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, they just had a lot to say. They're just talking and talking and talking and talking. And when you don't think they can talk some more, they find something else to say. And it's just like, all right, we get whatever. Like, I guess at some point you have to justify hiring some of these actors, but, there's something to be said for, like, the United States version of, like, a monster movie like this where...
Well, I think in movies in the 50s in general, they were a lot more talky. I mean, even...
They were.
Like Creature from the Black Lagoon, there's lots of...
It's funny because I did compare it to this, specifically because the beginning where... I mean, again, I saw Curse of the Demon. I don't know if Night of the Demon is any different, but they have the scientist person kind of, like, explaining...
The history of
witchcraft, of demons, of the Druids, and how it all comes back to Stonehenge. And
yeah,
it did remind me of the beginning of Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah,
me too. Now I just find it so endearing that I sit there and just listen to it, and it's just fun.
Yeah, but Creature from the Black Lagoon is,
Curse of the Demon, Night of the Demon. This could easily be considered, if this was a Universal picture, this is another one that could be an unofficial Universal monster.
Yeah.
It would fit right in.
Yeah, so, there's that. There's a lot of interesting aspects to it, with its influence on other movies.
Yeah, like we said, like
Drag Me to Hell.
Every demon movie is still kind of like borrowing from this one. Even like Paranormal Activity, films like that.
Yeah. Well, that's a movie where a lot of people talk a lot.
I get, yeah.
And sleep.
I haven't seen that in a while, but yeah, you might be right.
But, another great scene in this is the seance scene, which is always weird, where you have somebody who speaks with another person's voice.
I didn't know how to take that scene. I didn't know if that guy was putting everybody on or if it was like a legit thing. And I didn't know the way the movie portrayed that scene. I didn't know how to take it either.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was like he is a charlatan or if this was actually happening.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I also liked about it, because I related to the cynical psychologist, who doesn't believe in anything, and because I'm cynical and I don't believe in anything, but
there we have it.
But that's kind of like one of those like, they have like debates about like skepticism and its role in science. The
whole movie's about skepticism.
Yeah. So
and how that's a kind of a faulty way to live, I guess. It's just like the one guy, he freely admits he just doesn't believe anything at face value, and his entire life he just is out there to disprove things.
Yeah. No, and what's really interesting about this is like, his scientist clique is very, they have like the Indian guy and
very eclectic.
Yeah, it was very interesting because it's like, usually it's a bunch of white dudes,
especially in that era.
Yeah, in that era especially. And then, he's like listening to the woman who has the background in psychology too.
Yeah.
Who does believe in the supernatural.
I'll give that movie credit. They treated each other as complete equals.
Yeah.
They never patronized anyone. Everyone was there, and they were all just, they brought what they could to the table. And
I know, for a 1959 movie, it was fairly interesting.
It was. I liked it.
Yeah. Okay, so we've made it through that. Next one up is When a Stranger Calls.
Dude, I gotta go. I gotta go. I just got a text. I gotta go. I can't.
Have you checked the children?
Yeah. I gotta go. I can't talk about this. Got an urgent text. I gotta leave.
Okay.
All right. Well, no. I picked this movie, and I picked this from childhood memory. This movie came out in 1979. Right? The year I was born, the year we were born, I think.
Yeah. And he picked the worst horror movie from 1979.
Well,
no, I'm kidding. That's not the worst one.
It's not the worst one. I'll tell you what. It was disappointing because I had memories of this movie, and I just remember it being so creepy and so scary, and that is the truth. With the first 15-20 minutes. And that, of course, is the infamous scene where in the beginning where, the scene that Scream borrows heavily from, where the babysitter played by Carol Kane is just harassed by an unknown caller.
Yeah.
And, keeps calling her and keeps, it's one of those urban, legend stories. Like, I think even before this movie was a movie, that was like a ghost story or a scary story in popular culture.
It was. And so the first 15-20 minutes of it are pretty tense and pretty good. The movie, like, it turns out that the killer was in the house.
You need a beer ball?
That he he did kill the children.
He did kill the children. The story, from what I understand, from what I remember, is like they catch him before he gets a chance to kill the children.
Yeah.
But the movie, like nobody wants to buy a ticket to watch a 20-minute movie. So they had to kind of like stretch upon the story. So for the movie, he kills the children.
Yeah. Like they just show the police officers carrying out 2 small body bags out.
Right.
And it starts to tell the story of the police officer who found them is hired by the father of the 2 children that were murdered to kill the guy who killed his kids, who just recently escaped from an insane asylum.
Right.
The killer's name was Kurt Duncan.
Kirk Duncan.
Yeah, Kurt Duncan.
There's a name to be scared of.
Yes, and the film decides after he murders 2 children to try to make him sympathetic, and you start to see like what his life is like. And he gets beat up at a bar. Yeah, I can't. And nobody wants to be his friend.
I couldn't believe they tried to make us feel sympathy for this guy that killed toddlers.
Yeah, like why would you like
oh, well, he had a bad day.
Yeah. I mean, like, the dude, they make him, like, act like Facebook comments the movie. Yeah. Like that angry dude in, like, every news story that...
Like, we don't have... They tried to make... They try to almost make him, not an anti-hero, but, like, sympathetic to where, like, you're like, oh, well, I see where he's coming from.
Yeah, like, oh, yeah, that sucks. Nobody wants to
I still don't see how killing kids, like, was going to alleviate any of his problems.
Yeah, like, if you're having personality problems, I don't think that, like, killing kids is going to help you make a case for it. And so they do this, like, weird thing where I think they're trying to make, like, the hunter becomes the hunted type thing, but it doesn't really work because...
It doesn't work at all.
Like, you're just hoping that someone takes this scumbag out. It was really bizarre. And then the movie changes again, and it cuts back to the babysitter who's now grown up and an adult.
Right.
Has a normal life and no PTSD, really, to speak of until she gets a call at the restaurant.
Now, can I go on a tangent here for a second?
Yeah.
Isn't it funny? After her ordeal with these babysitters, with the babysitting this family and somebody coming in and killing the kids and what have you, she doesn't have PTSD enough to create a compound around her house.
Yeah.
And a makeshift killer, like, incinerator in the basement. I'm talking about Halloween 2018.
Of course, yeah.
Who retconned every movie out of existence except for the original film.
Yeah.
And, Laurie Strode in that film has severe PTSD, which, in my opinion, makes absolutely no sense if you're only taking the first film into account. I mean, she's a survivor, absolutely.
She would have a pistol, but, like, booby trap her house?
Off of that one night, she would base every decision she's ever made on this psycho coming back to kill her.
Yeah.
Who is not her brother, because that's retcon out of existence, and not someone who followed her to the hospital to finish the job, which is retconned out of existence.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I mean, I'm just saying. But the other reason I talk about Halloween in the context of this film is that this movie, in a lot of ways, is just Halloween retold. It's the killer going after the babysitter.
Yeah.
And then years later coming back, looking for the babysitter again.
Yeah.
It's Halloween retold. If Michael Myers was, the quasi-supernatural, unstoppable killer, was replaced by a complete and total dweeb.
Yeah, who cries naked and
gets beat up easily at bars. He doesn't even put up a fight.
Yeah, and then, like, he killed the toddlers with his bare hands and, like, disfigured the toddlers' bodies that they had to spend a week to do the funeral, according to the detective. Who is that? Officer McRib?
Oh, well, there's that
That's
one
the
guy.
other problem with this movie is that the police officer that's hunting Kurt Duncan is, like, the least charismatic police officer I've ever seen in my entire life.
He's the poor man's Brian Dennehy.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Brian Dennehy's like Clint Howard. Only Clint Howard's awesome.
Didn't you call him like Officer McRib or something?
Officer McRib, Captain Krispy Kreme.
And so...
Like, there's like this entire scene where he finds out that the babysitter from the original case gets a call at the restaurant.
Yeah.
And he's like sitting there in bed, like debating on whether or not he's going to get out of bed to go check on these kids now.
Right. Like Vin Diesel or The Rock, he is not.
No. He's not even like Danny Glover. Like, Danny Glover is he's...
Yeah, he's competent.
Yeah, he's competent.
This guy felt, to me... You know how, like, every police academy movie or, like, even The Naked Gun, they have that, like, evil police sergeant that's, like, going up against Mahoney or Frank Drebin. He's like that. To me, he's like that guy you're supposed to, like, not like.
Yeah.
You're supposed to, like, root against him. And he's, you know, he probably has a lot of flatulence and burps a lot.
Yeah.
But in this movie, he's our hero.
Yeah. I mean, the whole movie's bizarre, but yeah, it switches back to the babysitter. They have the final showdown in the woman's house, and her kids are safe. So
that whole scene doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like...
So he killed toddlers with his bare hands, mutilated them to the point, like, they were disfigured.
Yeah.
Years later, her husband is found unconscious in the closet. He's not killed. He's not mutilated.
Yeah.
He's just sitting there unconscious.
Yeah.
And he didn't do anything to her kids.
Yeah.
Is that in character of this guy? Of this dweeb?
I don't know. I mean, it's so bizarre.
Maybe for a dweeb.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. But, like, the whole weird thing is like, it could have been better if he started going after her.
Right.
Like, making his way back to her, like, after that second act scene.
Yeah.
Or, like at the start of Act 2. But this is like the start of Act 3. We had forgotten about the babysitter at this point because there's like 60 minutes of filler.
And he calls her at one point, and this is like at the climax of the film. This is what like gets the end of the film going. Finally, Carol Kane, who was the babysitter in the beginning, is reintroduced. And she's at dinner with her husband, who just got a promotion. He looks like Harold Ramis.
Yeah.
And he's going on about,
we're going to be rich.
We're going to be rich, and we got a car, and we got manservants. And
we'll get cable TV.
We'll get cable TV finally.
Like Judge Reinhold and Gremlins.
Yeah, right. We'll get a toaster. Like all this stuff. And
we'll
then
get a microwave oven.
Right, like a lot of things that, like, I guess they should be excited about.
Yeah.
And then out of the blue, like, the killer calls them
at the
restaurant. And maybe I missed it because I don't know if you missed the beginning of the podcast, but I'm exhausted. I have a kid now and I'm not used to this.
Yeah.
If there's any babysitters available, can you, like, email our show? But it didn't make any sense to me. I might have missed it. How did he know they were at the restaurant? Did they ever explain that?
The only thing I could figure is that they gave the number of the restaurant
to the babysitter, and he called the babysitter, and then she gave him the number.
She either gave him the number or he was in the house.
They should have showed it.
They should have showed it.
In the 70s, everyone was happier.
But then they would have to explain, like,
it
why
didn't dissect
he didn't
things
kill,
nearly as much, so maybe they just accepted it. I'm just like, how did he know that they were at this fancy French restaurant?
Yeah.
That's the same restaurant that Steve Martin and what's her name filmed The Jerk, by the way. Did you know that?
Is it?
I made that up.
Okay.
But it kind of looked like it.
It kind of did.
And Carol King kind of reminds me of that actor.
And then they have like I'm like, what fancy 5-star restaurant is going to CB somebody like of going in for a kiss with his girl, and then like all of a sudden like jam a fucking bottle of wine in the like between them.
Right. I know that this movie has a lot of fans, and I thought when I recommended this to Paul that I was one of them. That's why I recommended it. Turns out I don't like it. It feels like a movie made for television, and honestly, I was going to give it a pass because for the longest time I thought this was made for television, but it turned out not to be true. It's actually the sequel, When a Stranger Calls Again.
Yeah,
that was actually made for television. So this movie has no excuse. It's just, it's kind of tedious and boring.
I mean, there's a couple decent suspense sequences in it.
I mean, they do a good job with, like, the first 20 minutes influenced a whole lot of movies. Scream and no other movies else that I can think of.
The remake?
But it definitely influenced Scream.
Yeah, and, I mean...
What's your favorite scary movie, you know?
Yeah, and that was... also like the killers calling from inside the house. That was done in Black Christmas too.
Yeah.
But they actually made a movie.
And at the end, when she gets in bed and she thinks it's her husband and it's actually the killer. And that is that's creepy.
Yeah.
Those things that happen aren't enough to save this movie to make it anything like that I would ever want to watch again.
Yeah, like the babysitter was sympathetic, and then like everybody else, like the cop.
And I know we're gonna get some hate from that because I know there's some fans of this movie. But maybe it's a time and place thing. It's not. In my opinion, you can watch the first 20 minutes, appreciate what you just saw, and then turn it off.
It wasn't very good.
No.
So that brings us to my pick for Adam, which was the classic slasher film, Terror Train. Terror Train is a movie about...
It is a movie. I can attest to that.
Yeah.
And I really got a kick out of it.
Yeah. It's a movie basically about a killer interrupting a David Copperfield special.
Yeah.
So...
David Copperfield, the magician, is in this film.
Yes, David Copperfield is
as a character that just does magic.
Yeah, and there's an actual magic performance in it, and it's David freaking Copperfield, and it's just awesome.
But it's a great magic show.
It is. And I watched the thing, and then when I finished watching it, I went on YouTube and watched like a ton of old David Copperfield specials.
Thinking all the bad slasher movies, and I'm not considering this a bad slasher movie, by the way, but all the bad slasher movies that you've forced me to watch over the years.
Yeah.
If just one of them had a magic show in the middle of it, a magic show in the middle of a bad movie, like, it's not a day wasted. I saw some magic.
Yeah, I mean, the David Copperfield special is like worth the price of admission alone.
Right.
But, okay, so Terror Train is a story in which college medical students are having a New Year's party.
Yep.
And it's a costume party aboard a train.
It's a fraternity, right?
Yeah, it's a fraternity. And they're having this costume party aboard on a train. Before this, at the prior New Year's party, they pulled a prank on one of the pledges.
Yeah, okay. Do you mind if I cut in for a minute?
Yeah.
Two things we gotta establish here about this film. First of all, before we even get into it, Jamie Lee Curtis is in this movie.
Yes.
So, for those of you that don't know this movie or haven't heard of it, like, that will kind of give you a frame of reference of how to feel about this film because, Jamie Lee Curtis in a slasher film, they have a similar vibe. Not that this is like a straight up copy of anything, because it's not. It's actually very original. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. She is in the film, and she's the main protagonist. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Without spoiling anything? All right. So that's number one. Number two, I wanted to say...
Right. Okay, so Jamie Lee is the first thing.
Yeah, so the second thing is... Okay, so I mentioned earlier about these slasher movies you force me to watch from time to time. And I like slasher movies, don't get me wrong. But growing up, it was always monster movies for me. Much like, and you're going to talk about the beginning here, but much like Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah.
Which has like the perfect, believable origin story of a killer that dresses like Santa Claus.
Yes.
This movie, the beginning, is just believable enough that what happens to this poor guy would send him, like, to the loony bin and as an eventual slasher. Like, you're not surprised that something bad happened to this guy.
Yeah. So
tripping over my own words there, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right? Something bad happened to this guy. And
the actual prank was Jamie Lee and the other friends convinced this guy to go upstairs to make out at a party. And little does this guy know that he's going to end up making out with a dead body.
And I wrote that down. I was like, did he just make out with a dead body?
Yeah.
And it was.
It was.
And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, and then it didn't dawn on me. I was like, okay, they're like medical students.
Yeah, they're medical students, so they had.
And I didn't understand, how did they get a dead body?
Yeah, and
at first I was like, did the killer already kill somebody? It wasn't obvious to me.
Yeah,
then I figured it out. Like, oh shit! Like they actually got a body from the morgue.
Yeah, and so they did this prank on this guy, and he actually.
And Jamie Lee Curtis is the one that she didn't know. But she drove. The whole premise was that the guy was going to go upstairs to make out with her.
Yeah. And so she leads him on, and he gets injured. He starts screaming and freaking out, and he gets burned because he wraps himself around this poster bed, and the sheets actually catch on fire because there's candles lit for the romance aspect to it. And it was a really like vicious prank, but
and he was in the fraternity.
Yeah, he was a pledge.
Oh, he was a pledge?
He was a pledge. And it like he had to get institutionalized. So you know that he's the killer, but what's brilliant about Terror Train is you don't know which person on that train he is.
Right.
And that's what makes.
Excuse me. We're going to edit out all my hiccups, right?
Yeah.
Like they call him Kenny in the beginning.
Yeah.
Watching this for the first time, I had confusion figuring out who this person is. Because there's another character named Ed.
Yeah.
He was like
and
the
magician's
guy.
name is Ken.
Yeah.
The David Copperfield character's name is Ken.
So I was so confused about who the actual killer was.
Yeah. And I think it does it really, really
Which is, a credit to the movie, I guess.
Yeah, and you have some really good suspense scenes in it. You're trapped in northern Canada is where this was filmed. It was a classic Canucksploitation film. And
is that a real term?
It is. Like, that's where My Bloody Valentine comes from, like this whole area, because they had a Canadian tax shelter and they made these exploitation horror films.
Nice.
And a lot of them made money. So, like My Bloody Valentine, which we'll be covering soon for Valentine's Day. Excited about that one. But yeah, Terror Train. It's a really effective movie. It's way better than it ever deserved to be. And I don't know. Was this your first time viewing, or is this like first time you remember?
First or second, I can't remember. Jamie Lee Curtis excels at playing a woman being chased by a masked killer.
Yeah,
I mean, it just is what it is. We all have our lot in life. That's hers.
Yeah, and she's, she's not the square like Laurie Strode was.
No, not at all.
She's,
Although, I remember, it was made a very, very big deal about whose idea the train party was.
Yeah.
And when she found out it was the guy who orchestrated the original thing.
Yeah.
Like she blew a gasket. And, I just thought that, I don't know, a lot of time was spent about whose idea is this party.
Yeah. Because she's dating one of the guys, but she hates, like, his best friend. Sounds like our lives.
Right.
She didn't want to do anything with him ever again after she assisted with, like, the dude making out with a corpse. But
I guess that was it.
Yeah. But yeah, Jamie Lee is, like, one part of the popular crowd, I think, in this.
Right. Can I ask you a question about this movie, though?
Okay.
So here's the question. We didn't even touch this topic. This is a costume party.
Yes, with Jamie Lee Curtis. And it's definitely not on Halloween.
Right. So it's a costume party on a train.
Yes.
Which sounds cool enough. But what an odd, it's just, I guess it would have made more sense if this movie was a Halloween party for these kids.
Well, yeah.
Because I've never seen another movie portray like New Year's Eve as a time to wear costumes. But, I'd be all for it. I'd be all for it if that was like an actual tradition.
Yeah, I think New Year's should definitely be a costume holiday.
Because, like, even most of the costumes in this movie, like, they weren't anything scary. Like, the one guy was a duck. He dressed up like a duck.
Yeah.
And the other guy was a monk.
Yeah.
Like, it was just kind of like hipster costumes. I kept waiting for somebody to come in as, like, handlebar mustache or something,
Yeah.
It was just,
Well, they had, like, the one guy who was dressed up like Uncle Sam. And
it was just a costume party for hipsters.
Yeah, and then obviously the Groucho Marx,
right?
Which gets killed pretty early on, and you think that a killer's dressing up like Groucho Marx, which is.
But it's just odd to me because like the movie definitely does have a Halloween feel to it, and the reason and most of that has to do with everyone dressed up in a costume.
Well, I think, yeah, and I think they like go out of the point to say that this is a New Year's party because I think they were kind of worried about getting sued for making you have the star of Halloween getting chased by a mask-wearing killer at a costume party. You couldn't set it on Halloween without it being like, this isn't Italy, this is Canada where you can't have the unofficial sequels.
Right.
I don't know.
This movie is interesting because it's, once they're on the train itself, there's two separate stories being told here. There's the
magic show.
There's the three separate stories being told here. The magic show, the kids hijinks with each other.
Yeah.
And then there's the employees of the train.
Yeah, there's that story too.
Which, like, they're all having, like, an existential crisis about their chosen profession.
Yeah.
And they talk about it constantly.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really funny. And can I just say, first of all, I want to live in a world where everyone's profession, you have like a hat on with like a nice little tag on it that says what you do.
Yeah.
Because like the conductor, it says, nice little sticker right on his head. It says conductor. And there's another guy that like, he's the brake man. I guess he's in charge of the brakes.
Yeah.
But he's walking around like the train the whole time. Like he never once stops the train.
Well, they
and
stop
it says brake man on his hat. And then they keep fast forwarding to the people that are actually like in charge of the train. And they have like the coal and like this mud all over their faces. They don't get a magic sticker on their helmets.
No,
and
they're the dirt people.
Yeah, and they're just like they're the actual people like driving the train. So what does a conductor do? I mean, like they keep flashing back to the conductor, and his job seems like I want to be a conductor.
Yeah,
he doesn't. He drinks beer. He bothers college kids with his stupid magic tricks.
Yeah.
And then he talks to his friend about, railroad's dying.
Yeah.
Guess we're going to need to get a new job one day.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like the dirt
all he
dude's
does
like,
is walk around.
Yeah.
And he's like the guy that actually, I don't know. He's the main protagonist of the story.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, if I could start over again, I'd be a conductor in the 1970s because you don't do much.
Yeah. No, it's like
the conductor sounds like the guy that drives the train or steers.
Isn't that like real life though? Like you have like the executive.
He does not steer
like,
the train.
Doesn't do anything.
The conductor does not steer the train.
It's like the executive at like you've gone to like work for managers that don't do anything all day long except for check their phones and tell you what to do. You know, like that's essentially what they do on the train. It's like that everywhere.
Yeah.
But
then like intermittent here, it's like David Copperfield. Like you can't. He like flirts with Jamie Lee Curtis like during the movie, but he's like flirting with magic.
Yeah, dude. If I was a girl and David Copperfield flirted with me with some of the most amazing,
so you
magic,
can't compete.
There's no way.
You can't compete.
There's no way.
Like before Tinder, before like swipe left, swipe right, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You had to be able to like do magic, I guess.
Yeah,
you had to be able to make
something.
a cigarette penetrate a quarter.
Yeah, or
which is what which is like one of his main tricks in the movie.
Yeah, he does the like the in out with the quarter.
Right.
And that basically says, hey, you want to come back to my cabin?
Well, that's the thing. And that's when he's talking to Jamie Lee later. He's just, he's just like, come back to my cabin. I'll be the cigarette and you be the quarter,
Yeah.
Like one of those.
Yeah.
But anyway, good movie. You want to talk about the end at all? I mean, the ending is kind of abrupt.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not abrupt. I mean, it's well earned, but
yeah, I mean, everyone knows who the killer is, but they don't know
that's
who
the thing. Like they throw out red herrings, potential red herrings. Like the jerk boyfriend who orchestrated the corpse kissing in the beginning.
Yeah,
it could be him because he just shows like evil, kind of like narcissistic tendencies. So it could be him.
Yeah.
It could be the magician. Just because he seems intense and kind of creepy and he's so like detached from everybody else. So it could be him.
Yeah, he's a hired professional. He's there. And
it could be the narcissist friend.
Yeah.
Who's always getting shut down. Who's always like, his friend is always just like killing him.
Yeah.
In the lady department. Like I was talking about C blocking and Mr. Hyde. You haven't seen C blocking until you watch Terror Train.
Yeah.
This guy kills him.
So basically our entire film festival can relate to basically sea beings.
Yeah, I guess.
I guess that kind of ties it all together.
But it's a good movie. We should say, I mean, can we say? I mean, Kenny's the killer.
Yeah, Kenny's the killer, but we're not going to tell you who.
But I don't even know who that actor is.
Yeah.
Can I even talk about the actor? Because, and we didn't even get into it, but like the killer in this entire movie works. I mean, he's always switching costumes, which is cool, to like avoid. But the most iconic one is he has a Groucho Marx mask.
Yeah.
But his eyes look so feminine.
Yeah.
That I was the entire movie looking for the red herring. Like, which girl is the killer? That's who. Because even the way he walks is just he has a very like asexual like gait to him.
Yeah.
And then at the end, like when you see this guy, like he's just I don't want to say bizarre looking, but he's, you know, I don't know, like he's creepy looking. Like it's good casting for this guy because the eyes look very feminine.
Yeah.
And it throws you all off. Threw me off. Trying to guess who the killer was.
And how they got on the trains.
That too. But then, like, he kisses Jamie Lee, and he's got a flashback of that incident in the beginning of the film. He goes even more insane.
Yeah.
And he ends up getting tossed out the train and, you know, floats down an icy river to his demise.
Yeah.
Good movie.
Yeah, good movie. So?
The best of the bunch.
Yeah, I would say
the best of these, of what we watched, for sure.
Okay. Well, it's good to be back.
Yeah. Heck yeah, it's good to be back.
And, you know, let us know what you think. Let us know why... I keep thinking, like, When a Stranger Calls is not... or is good if you have a different opinion or whatever, but wasn't for me. Don't like it.
You don't know how much of a hard pill this is to swallow, because me and Paul, we do have like a little rivalry about certain movies, and I picked the worst movies.
Yeah.
His movies were far better than the ones that I picked. But that's life, and I don't know. I'll get them next year, I guess.
Yeah, there's always next time. All right, well, we're going to be releasing this one, and then we have a Lost episode coming up, which was Day of the Dead, so look for that one. And we'll be getting back to recording more often.
Yep. So thanks for sticking around, if you did. And I don't know. Hope to talk at you again here soon. Here's this woman with bow-legged woman.
To a new world of gods and monsters.
See you next time.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.